Hello, welcome back to Living Faith by the Letter. I'm your host, Rob Lester. I'm the minister at the Church of Christ in Augusta, Kansas. We're going to take a letter today that will help us to improve our Bible study, our Bible knowledge, and ultimately our devotion and connection to God. The letter we're going to take today is the letter G, which stands for Greek. Greek was the language that the New Testament was originally written in. And a study of the Greek can really open up a lot of new levels of understanding about the Word of God. You do not need to be a Greek scholar to understand or appreciate the Bible. God makes it very plain and simple and accessible to everyone. But the Greek can really help you to uncover new levels of meaning in His Word that can be very fascinating, can be very helpful to building your faith. I had it explained to me one time that it's sort of like a coloring book, a child's coloring book, where you can open the pages and you see it's in the black and white, and you can see the outlines and see, yes, that's a car, that's a horse, that's a basketball. And but then what the Greek study can do is it gives you the colors. It lets you see that not only is that a car, that's a yellow car with a green stripe. That's a brown horse with a black mane. That's a dark orange basketball. And it can just help you to kind of fill in some things that give you a little more understanding and appreciation. And hopefully, it makes the Bible a little more real. You can also see in the study of the Greek how it's connected to some of our English words, and we'll talk about one of those here in just a minute. But a very simple example of how the Greek can help you understand and appreciate the Bible a little more is found in Revelation chapter 21 and verse 6, where after Jesus has given this vision, this revelation to the Apostle John, he says to him, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last. And if you didn't know Greek, you wouldn't know that Alpha is the first letter of the Greek alphabet and Omega is the last letter of the Greek alphabet. So what Jesus is saying here is basically, if we're looking at the English comparison, Jesus is saying, I am from A to Z, which fits with what he says when he says, I'm the first and the last, the beginning and the end. And it just sort of reemphasizes the point that he was trying to make to John. So that's something that the Greek can help you with. Another example we might look at in the scriptures, if you want to turn to Ephesians chapter 6, if you want to pause the video, you can turn to Ephesians chapter 6. But in this section here where Paul is talking about the armor of God, there's something very interesting that you would only know by an understanding of some of the Greek words. In Ephesians chapter 6, beginning in verse 10, Paul writes, Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the full armor of God so that you will be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. Then down in verse 16, he says, In addition to all, taking up the shield of faith, with which you will be able to extinguish all of the flaming arrows of the evil one. Well, both in verse 11 and verse 16, Paul uses the word able, so that you will be able to withstand the schemes of the devil and his flaming arrows. Now, in English, the word able means it's able, it's adequate, it'll get the job done, uh, it'll suffice. That's the word able that we think. If I say, well, I'm able to do something, I don't excel at it, but I can get by. That's not the meaning that Paul is using here, because the Greek word that is translated in English as able is the word dunamis, from which we get the word dynamite. As you probably have heard someone mention before, dynamite is very powerful, very strong substance. And that's the power that Paul is referring to there. Uh, and that really changes the shade of the meaning. He's saying, that God has given us the ability not to just barely squeak by with a victory against Satan. We can just eke out a win against some of the tactics that he pulls against us to try to get us to sin. No, he's saying that God has given you the strength, the power, the might to withstand the devil if you will learn to rely on him. And the shield of faith doesn't just, it's like the flaming arrows of the devil aren't just ping ping ricocheting off to the side and we just barely dodge them. No, they utterly extinguish it. And that really does change the meaning of what Paul is saying. And also, you wouldn't know without an understanding of the Greek that back in verse 10, when he says, finally, be strong in the Lord, the word strong there is the same word, dunamis. So there's really a thread that follows all through that, and it can connect you to what Paul is really getting at, and the encouragement of a verse like that, just by knowing some of the Greek root words. One of the greatest tools for this that I have found is the good old reliable Strong's Exhaustive Concordance. This covers Hebrew and Greek. I'm not going to do Hebrew. A lot of the things I'm saying about the benefits of studying the Greek also apply to the Hebrew. So I'm not going to use that for the letter H. We'll just combine these two. But the Strong's Concordance is something that's very useful because it's very user friendly. You can look up an English word like faith. I want to look up the word faith. You would look up the word faith, and it would show you a listing of where that appears in the Old Testament, all the verses that word appears in, and all the verses in the New Testament. And in the right column, you would see a number. And that number applies in the Old Testament to a Hebrew word, in the New Testament to a Greek word. That would send you to the back of the concordance, and you look at the numbers in order, and you would find that number, and you would see what the Greek word in that verse is translated as faith. And it can be very, very helpful. For example, another place you might look at would be in, if you're looking up the word hell, for example. You want to know where the word hell appears, and you would see all the instances that it appears, and you would look on that page, and you would see in the New Testament, for example, in Matthew 5:22, Jesus says, talks about being in danger of hellfire, the one who insults his brother. And you see that that's the Strong's number 1067. So you'd go in the back of the concordance and look up, and that would tell you that's the word Gehenna. And then if you look down in Matthew chapter 11 and verse 23, Jesus refers to hell there, at least in the English translation, but the word he uses there, you'd see the number 86, and that's the word Hades. Well, those are two completely different words in the Greek that have been translated as the same English word. And it can help you to see which word was translated and how they connect and what thread is, sort of like we saw in Ephesians chapter 6. So that's where a study of the Greek can help you to kind of put some pieces together and connect some things. Another really useful tool is Vine's Expository Dictionary of Old Testament and New Testament Words. Again, it also has Hebrew and Greek. You would look up an English word, and it would tell you the various Greek or Hebrew words that are translated in our English Bible. And sometimes there may be two or three, there may be several. And it shows you a listing of usually the verses that those are found in. You can see, oh, that word is used here. I would have thought it would have been the other one. So they can just make it very, very helpful to you in your study. And that's one way that that you can really benefit from it. So look into the Greek, also the Hebrew. I find Hebrew to be a lot more difficult than the Greek, but they both show a lot of value in just diving into it. And that's the great thing about it is you don't have to know Greek or Hebrew to know the Bible, to understand it, to be wise in the ways of God, to have the kind of faith that He wants you to have. It's not necessary. It just is. It's an assistance. It's a help. And the great thing about it is when you want to look into that area of study of language and things like that, you can just barely dip your toes into the water and glean a few neat little nuggets like, oh, dunamis, that's where we get the word dynamite. That's kind of cool. And you don't have to go any further than that. You can see some connections between English words that can be helpful to you. Or if you want to just jump in and dive in down to the very depths, you'll really uncover some amazing things regarding language. But it's up to you. You don't have to do it at all. You can do it a little. You can do it a lot. It's a great thing. But that's just one more tool that will help you to draw closer to God, to understand and appreciate all the wonderful things that He has done for humanity, for you, and for me. And I hope that that's a blessing to you today. Have a great day. If you're watching this on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.